Welcome, everybody. This is Denny Hunt and Karl Mollison with GetWisdom, and today we're going to continue with our channeling series. And today's subject is Mary Magdalene, and this potentially is a very controversial subject. Most of what's known about her has come from biblical texts, and so a lot of people have been exposed to this figure in history from biblical sources primarily. And in the Judeo-Christian world, of course, she's a very famous and controversial figure there. There's been obviously probably some disinformation about this person, this apostle of Christ. And so we have 7 questions today, and we're ready to dig into it. And I'd like to invite Karl to tell us a little bit about his perspective on this subject. And so thank you, Karl, and thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Denny. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope you'll enjoy this. This is a journey of love and curiosity. There is a lot at stake in this for us personally and for humanity. This is what we believe, and it's what we're all about, wanting to bridge the gap between what we perceive as reality and truth, which can be something different.
Yeah.
And we learn this from our light being friends on a regular basis. But we're largely missing the point, and we've got a lot of misconceptions and faulty sources of information, faulty teachers, false history. The current buzzword is fake news, and that only begins the tip of the iceberg, really. And this isn't about human politics. It's larger than that. There's deeper reasons for why humans are faulty, why they will let us down sometimes, or even be a menace to, polite society. Those who have come to help, the religious figures of the past and those supporting them, are on record as playing the role of teachers and helpers and a bridge with the light, with the divine. It's sorely needed. We need everyone we can to have that focus, because it can develop into something, if only a kind of a personal knowing and a personal confidence that, yeah, I sense there is something to this and I'm going with it, and
Right.
A lot of people just go on that basis, and, bless them, because this is the hardest thing. And that's been commented on in the Bible, the quotes, ye of little faith, and so
Right.
on. And I've had that told me directly by a creator. I have a colleague who believes totally in what I do, and I doubt sometimes. I can't help it. I'm human. I'm a humble person, and this is wildly improbable to me, and still is. And so I'm doing the best I can to stand strong and be able to make these connections and do what I do. But I fully understand the problem of the non-believer and the doubter, all of it. And Creator said to me one time, well, look at your colleague. She believes in this totally and does not see. And you who see have trouble at times believing, and
Yeah.
just pointing it out to me. And it stuck, because this is the primary difficulty of everybody who struggles with this whole issue of belief and being strong and certain about it, which helps it,
Right.
and helps you.
And it's especially a poignant problem if you consider everyone's subconscious mind and where so
Yes.
many of those doubts spring from. And since we don't have access to that part of ourselves, it makes correcting that problem all the more difficult.
Well, I think it's the largest of the human dilemmas, that we can't connect to our own selves in a part of us that's vitally important and governing a lot of what happens and doesn't happen. So anything we can learn about the human condition and how to make our lives better and shed some light on things in the past that maybe we came away not understanding completely, but can still speak to our lives today is worth doing.
Right, and
So
that's
that's
one
why,
thing I wanted to point out about the series is that what you just said is the motivation for doing the series. So we could flesh out the background and a lot of stuff that has probably migrated into our deep subconscious and created a framework for a lot of the beliefs that we have. So we can go back and explore these issues from the divine realm's perspective on things and get clarity. So the whole series has been an effort to flesh all of this out. And one of the more recent things that we've been doing is trying to include more of the female subjects that are widely known, especially in the Western world and maybe in worldwide figures such as her. Because if you look back on the channeling series, it's been a preponderance of male figures, and not that that's that important from the divine realms perspective, but we have to be sensitive to the fact that our viewers are going to be looking at distinctions like that from their perspective might be important. So lately, we've been trying to increase the number of female subjects that are well known.
well, it's worth doing because you have the potential, at least, of getting a somewhat different perspective. And that's the whole point of having a fair representation in all of life of people with differing makeup and characteristics. And it's kind of ironic that the people who promote equality and fairness in things like gender representation are quick to make distinctions, and they're happy to flip this on its head and make the males now the bad guy and that there's something wrong with them and they're toxic and so on. And it's quite illogical when you think about it in the way the divine realm does, that we do have differences that are soul based and it's part of the plan. So there's a variety. There are people with different strengths. So they can fill differing roles and have differing life experiences. So it's not all a sameness. There are some that are more specialized to do certain things. And it doesn't make them better or worse. It just makes them different. And to deny the difference is kind of silly and it creates problems of its own. But there's always a level deeper when we're not getting along. And I think that's the thing to get to, get beyond the labels and get to how people are being treated and what is happening that makes their life lesser in some way. Who's contributing to that and why. And that's the real source of the problem. And of course, this series is a representation of history in the reality that the leadership has been overwhelmingly male, and it was seen to, and it was the order of the day. It was the current politics, the current cultural beliefs, and like it or not, it's the way the world ran for so very long. So it's only natural that of the prominent, iconic figures of history, more would be male than not, because those were the people given the opportunities
Right.
to have, moments of greatness through having the responsibility to handle the tough things
Yeah, it
and
wasn't
so
the
on.
natural order of things.
Right, right. So those women who did something extraordinary are doubly extraordinary, is kind of what I'm getting to. And not that they're not important, because they were shoved aside or whatever. They still held everything together. They're the glue that makes things work. And they're often superior in many ways in their makeup because the male is kind of an exaggeration of a sort of a type, and that's a whole other discussion. But we'll see what Mary Magdalene has to say about that aspect of things, because
Yeah.
she was, and a very interesting figure in that regard.
Yeah.
And so you'll be bringing some of that out in your questions, I know.
Yeah.
So we're excited and looking forward to speaking with her and maybe learning from her perspective about those events of her time. And we always get a sense of what it means in today's world,
Right.
which really makes this particularly important. It's not just kind of a curiosity to go back and dust something off and polish it up a little and look at it, and it's like something frozen in time that we can't even relate to, a different time and place. It's all over and done with long ago. It's no longer relevant to anything important to us. And it's really not so, because everyone who's lived through history has lived the human struggle. That struggle goes on, and we have many of the same difficulties: the power structure, the constraints on freedom, the judgmental characteristic of these hierarchies, and it is a kind of a poison in all of society. And it holds us back, and we're holding one another back. It's sort of like the metaphor of a platter with live lobsters on it, and they're all piled on top, and they want to break away, they want to break free, and as soon as one goes to the edge, someone else will grab it, and pull it back, and that's kind of what it's like with people. People will drag you down to their level if you let them.
Yeah. And a lot of
So,
that is from this culture of suppression, is that a lot of the people who did stick their head up above, the rest were the ones who got targeted, shut down, harmed in some way. So it was actually a survival thing for, a parent to tell their child, no, 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 we don't talk about that you'll get in trouble. And then so
mhm.
this culture of suppression is encouraged because it becomes a matter of survival, and that was something that was very prevalent in Mary's time back then, because the leadership, the Romans in particular, were quick to suppress any kind of a independence or something speaking against the norm. So it was as Jesus's life demonstrates, it was not a safe place to be outspoken.
Indeed. And it's chilling to read the accounts of those days, the high price that was paid
Yeah,
for just being a believer in God and
right.
not being part of the officially sanctioned outlet for that.
Yeah,
You were immediately under suspicion of being some kind of a rebel faction,
yeah,
almost,
a
and a
direct
kind of
threat.
yeah, it was a threat, kind of
Yeah,
like a guerrilla action that was brewing and bubbling up and could foment, um, public discord. And this is, happens again and again, less so today than in the past, but we still have times where there's rioting, there are demonstrations
yeah.
that get out of hand.
Or people
So,
assassinated for their
yeah,
politics, or speaking out, telling the truth. Truth tellers are all throughout history have been killed, and
yes.
it's done in a more secretive fashion now, for the most part. But oh my gosh, there's still scores and probably hundreds or thousands of people still being killed for being truth tellers, whistleblowers, people who are willing to put their lives on the line to correct the wrongs, if you will. So she's going to be, like you said, she's going to be able to speak to a lot of contemporary issues.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to this. This should be very very enlightening
Yeah.
and a wonderful opportunity to help extend the dialogue about all this. Because we need to get down to the bedrock. We need to find the true culprits for things.
Yeah.
And and the goal always in this is to find solutions. It's not just to turn over rocks and
Yeah.
expose people to ugliness and more disheartening knowledge about the negativity of the world and so on. We may well do that along the way.
Right.
There's a lot of rocks yet to be kicked over, but the idea is in that learning and awareness comes truth, and from truth comes wisdom as we learn how to come to grips with it and make changes.
Right. Implement
And
the solutions which the light
exactly,
beings invariably talk about. I think you could go back to the very first channeling video that we did, and it was brought up. The
yeah,
solutions were brought up. In fact, they tend to dominate a lot of these channeling. If you go back
yeah,
and look at all the questions and all the answers that we got, the solution was brought up in some fashion in almost every answer to every question we asked. So it's a front burner issue that is not going to go away.
yeah. So it's useful to point that out at the beginning, which is kind of why I was going down this track, because this is so unusual that we can pierce the veil like this and connect directly with someone in the divine realm. This is not an ordinary dialogue we're having here.
Yeah,
It cannot be done by ordinary human beings. We're disconnected. We need a special bridge to come from the divine to even make it possible. So it's a rare event, and the light beings are quite eager to help because we're going there with that expectation and that desire. So they're eager to answer and take advantage of this opportunity too, because they know when we stop, that's it.
yeah,
The door closes, and unless and until we do it again, we're back all on our own.
yeah.
So we'll do our best to make the most of this.
Okay. All right. So I guess if there's nothing else, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, I'll just need a couple of moments to get in the right state of consciousness. And I go to the divine to set up the communication link. I do all my channeling through the creator of all that is. I do that for safety reasons, first and foremost, because there are so many lower level beings out there who will engage with channelers as imposters and pretend to be a divine figure. And this has sidelined almost all of them that are out there. I hate to say that, and it's not a self-serving remark. It is done with great reluctance and a personal sadness that I can't describe to you, because these are people, and I know what it's like to put myself on the line and doing what I do. It's weird enough as it is, but to think that I'm giving disinformation out and would be devastating. So I know what this represents, and but it's no different than most other things in life,
Yeah,
which all have a dark side to them,
yeah,
and we just live with it and live in spite of it. But the world could be a lot better place. So I just putting in my little plug to be aware of the pitfalls, and channelers need to be more rigorous in their methods. They need to go back and cultivate a belief in the divine, many of them. And that's one of the liabilities of the New Age movement, that it's directed people away from dealing with the divine, thinking they can do it all on their own. And, I understand that, but they are going to lose out And this is one way that it's happening. So that's my pitch.
Okay.
So all I can promise you is I do the best I can to make this as accurate and truthful as humanly possible.
Okay.
This is Mary Magdalene speaking.
Thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about your transition, your location when you passed, and how many incarnations have you had since those days?
My transition was very uneventful, other than the joyousness of going home, of meeting compatriots from the light, and the wonderful and beautiful soul beings who rejoiced on my return. I was among a lucky set of humans who are able to transition without incident, without restriction, without hazard. As you know, this is a serious pitfall and influences many who pass from the physical but are unprepared for going to the higher realms. And when they do leave the body, may be interfered with directly by dark spirits desiring to constrain them, to capitalize on their energy and use them as a source of their own survival. So it is a kind of kidnapping, in effect, that takes place when people are non-believers and not prepared for a continuation of life. They are often at a low ebb at the very end, fearing what comes, fearing the darkness. And this makes it more difficult for them to see those coming from the light to greet them, which always happens, regardless of what they may have done in life. Every human being is cherished by Creator, no matter what life they lived. Even as a criminal, Creator understands there is a path back to the light and a path back to divine alignment. Criminal conduct is a distortion of the being in the physical, influenced by dark spirits to interfere with their native character. When they return to the light, they go back to being in light being mode, so to speak. They are not like the criminal you saw or read about while in physical life. They are a divine being in their own right, one who simply got off track and suffered the woundings from being distanced from their divinity. It always comes with a price, and the price goes up over time. This is what the non-believers do to themselves. They can survive this and get away with it, but they may well stumble. And when they do, it'll be harder to get back. So your rescue work to save these lost souls is divinely inspired and divinely supported and divinely executed in response to your outreach and requests. on the behalf of those unfortunates. We are taking this opportunity to educate anyone who is unaware of the phenomenon. It is a living reality. You have a responsibility to safeguard your soul and your own journey. It is one that is continuous, and this will carry you forward through all of time. When you consider you have an infinite life ahead of you, being trapped in limbo is an even worse fate, because it may be unending until one day you are rescued. This need not happen if you develop an inner belief in the divine and wish to have the closeness, and the inner acceptance will make it easier for the outer reaching to you to be perceived when it truly counts the most. My life went on for a considerable period following the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And even after my passing, I did return and have been in multiple lifetimes since that era. This is the paradigm all belong to who are here. There are some new arrivals trying on for size the physical human container for the first time, but they are souls coming from elsewhere and have long, long histories, as do all of you. The idea we come in and live from infancy to what we think of as a ripe old age, but then pass away forever, is a faulty notion. We come in as a new chapter, a new episode among countless others, lifetimes in many places, through eons of time. This is the true meaning of the old soul. Many have existed prior to the creation of the current universe and watched its formation. This gives you quite a long history and experience with the divine, all of which is wiped away from memory when you come down and enter a developing fetus in the womb and are birthed into a new life with a family unit. And all of what came before is only accessed quite faintly by conscious awareness, but the deep part of the mind does see and know more. It may not fully understand what it sees, other than knowing it is oneself, who have had many experiences and many tragedies. We come into life again and again in this way to carry forward the development of humanity to a greater level of enlightenment through overcoming all that opposes us. This is an ongoing contest between the light and the darkness. there has been much corruption and degradation of human qualities, human characteristics, and human behavior and conduct on all levels, personally and on the part of society. There are many episodes from history that can help you see this point very graphically. The great tragedy is not seeing you are in the same script today, as happens over and over and over again. When people fight with one another, ignore one another, exploit one another, manipulate one another, and degrade one another through unawareness, disinterest, negation, and disbelief in what they tell you. This is all orchestrated to happen. This was true in the biblical era as well. It explains the ruthless heartlessness of the Roman Empire. They were acting as agents of a deep conspiracy of extraterrestrials dominating the world. This was old business. These extraterrestrial puppet masters have been the true rulers through all of human history and well before. They manipulate the human world as a kind of entertainment because they can. They are opposed by the divine realm, wanting to support the human family and make things better. But it is up to human to carry much of the load. This is a test of you. It is a challenge to be overcome. You all have greatness within you because you are part of something truly great. You are an extension of the living God. You do not know this because your memory has been broken through disconnection. You doubt because you yourselves are small and fragile. To think of yourself on that level seems absurd. The demonstration of this is in the ability to have a high level conscious awareness of many, many things beyond what you have been taught. Feelings innate to you and your being, coming from the soul, that determine who you are and maintain a link to divine love. The ability to love itself is a living demonstration of the divine in action. This was the mission of Jesus Christ, and that aspect is well represented still in the biblical accounts of his life, what he did and the things he taught. That message has never been more important than for today's world. To judge and denigrate others is non-divine. And this is routine. It is part of how people operate. To first lower another as though this raises them up. The opposite is the case, because the universe is watching, and the law of karma will seek to rebalance this wound caused for selfish reasons. The teachings of Jesus Christ and the circle around him, of which I was a part, were an important divine message intended to rescue humanity from the grip of the oppressors. This was not simply a religious group wanting to worship the Almighty and be left alone to do it in their own way. It was indeed a disruptive incursion of new thought designed to awaken the complacent, the unaware, those with blinders, not seeing the true nature of things, and to create the idea of new possibilities. This made us very dangerous to the powers that be, and it is well recorded what happened. I have been doing the same thing in life after life after life, in my own way. This is why you are all here, for you are just like me, not always coming close to the great teachers, but seeking great teachers, seeking truth, and coming in to bring your light, to make a mark, and to leave a legacy of improvement in whatever way you can accomplish, if only of yourself. That too is a worthwhile enterprise for a lifetime, because nothing will advance until you advance. The whole of humanity cannot advance until you can join in the group and be at the same level. As you look around your world today, there are the same problems as in biblical times, when there were many beggars on the street, many homeless, many dying young, ill-fed, uncared for, and suffering. What has changed? We would say very, very little. You have some modern trappings to make you feel successful and accomplished and sophisticated, and indeed enjoy many creature comforts if you're living in a developed country. That is not the same thing as being on a divine path and expressing your soul for the purpose you came down. Most become sidelined and stay asleep. Jesus Christ was here to wake people up and tell them the most important thing they need to know. That the most important work they can do is the giving and receiving of love, living through love, living for love, and living by love.
Okay, thank you. There are many myths about your person, your role, your relationship to Jesus, and the Christian faith that grew out of the time that Jesus spent on earth. Can you help us separate out the fact from the fiction, especially with respect to the claims of your libertine lifestyle before you met Jesus?
My reputation has been tarnished in the written accounts of those days. This was a deliberate, we repeat, a deliberate disinformation campaign to tarnish me, to tarnish the legacy of that circle of followers and what they carried on following the death of Jesus Christ. We lived the word. We put it into action. We taught many others. And we helped many others with healing, just as he taught us. I was never a fallen woman, so to speak. And I had a close love relationship with Jesus Christ and gave birth to his children. This was love in action. This is why humans are here, to experience love, especially in this setting when there are physical challenges and limitations as well. You learn more by experiencing the lack of something. You cannot appreciate what you have until you lose it, if only for a time. Negativity is a great teacher. And this is the true meaning of the metaphor of walking in another's shoes. It's never referenced to spend time being a king or queen or a celebrity. It is usually brought out to deal with the issue of differences of someone who is on a lower rung and needs understanding and often assistance. If this is only through acceptance, it will be every bit as valuable as material help. People can often raise themselves up if they feel they are equals. But it is so much harder when there is discrimination and prejudice. This is well known by those who corrupt things and is done again and again and again and again. If you look at your own cultural history, just taking the United States of America as an example and examining the political arena, sexual conduct is still a favorite target for discrediting public figures. conduct of all kinds, consensual or not. The imposition of moral standards, even in the name of the Almighty, is a non-divine act of judgment and condemnation, and is often engineered to happen, even when the conduct takes place. It is often not the person themselves choosing to misbehave so egregiously, so recklessly, so outrageously, especially during a period when they are already in the public eye and have so very much to lose. They are often manipulated and enticed into risky behavior through a manipulation of the mind to suspend their ability to discern not only right and wrong, but the risks of potential exposure, which, if nothing else, should give them sufficient pause to decline taking those risks. This is why all those built up in the public eye so often prove to have feet of clay. This was engineered to happen, more likely than not. It is another game that is being played by the manipulators, the hidden hand, the puppet masters. So we are simply pointing out this is nothing new. To create a smear campaign to tarnish a reputation it's a time-honored political tool, and was true in my time as well, for the same reason. Who does it serve to denigrate someone befriended by Jesus Christ? It does not serve the cause of religion except through twisted logic. It serves the hidden hand, the cabal of evil ones who corrupt, mislead, and bring down over and over and over. This is what holds humanity back. Toppling leadership, particularly over things not truly their fault to begin with, keeps everything disempowered and contributes to the gridlock of politics. This is the way the puppet masters want it to be. That is why our circle was targeted, and the legacy was tarnished by planting false information, turning rumors into accepted truths. This is a pitfall that is completely embraced as reality by almost everyone. And it is a disservice to yourself when you look at others as being one-dimensional beings. This is the purpose of forgiveness. if you think about the fact that people only misbehave when they're corrupted by an outside influence, blaming them is a double injustice. They are victims. That is not to say any conduct is excusable and deserves no readjustment or reassignment of responsibility. It is only pointing out there are deeper issues to be solved here, and that love and compassion can play a role in this. This is reflected in my story and serves as a kind of signpost. It's replicated again and again and again, all through history, and still happening today, right on your television screens.
Okay, thank you. Did you witness the crucifixion of Jesus and then afterwards find his empty tomb? And if so, is the physical resurrection of Jesus as told in the Bible, is that a true story?